Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Cheshta Dora, Head of Research, Content and Community at People Matters, and I'm so glad to be hosting this webinar for you today. How are you all doing? I hope everything is well at your end and you all are excited for this discussion today. But before we start, I would love to hear where you all are joining from. So go ahead and type in the cities you're joining us from. All right. So while you all type in, thank you all again for joining us in this webinar today. As we know, job markets across Australia and New Zealand continue to evolve, making it a region, a focal point for innovation and talent management strategies that help businesses remain agile and productive. The disruptive impact of newer technologies and regional labor market changes has renewed the focus on retaining, developing, and engaging their workforce and leaders alike. Looking ahead, HR leaders in ANZ specifically, but also across the globe, must adapt the approaches to meet evolving business needs of productivity and employee agility. The People Matters SHRPA State of the HR Industry research that we conducted this year highlights three critical imperatives for 2025 where HR professionals need to excel to ensure their workforce and ultimately their business thrives. Those three imperatives for the companies in 2025 are: HR of the future must execute change with speed. HR must develop functional resilience to enhance effectiveness, and HR must build sustainable technology infrastructure to maximize business value. Now, these imperatives build on the underlying gaps that emerge from the region's changing HR and business landscape. And those are some of the findings that we uncovered during our research. And you will see the link to this research in the chat box soon as well. And I would encourage you to download this research and go through it. But for today, what's in it for you? In this webinar, we bring together talent experts, advisors, and leaders to further explore strategies and action plans for HR leaders and HR tech partners across Australia and New Zealand to navigate these shifts in the HR landscape and meet these three imperatives. Build on the findings of Asia Pacific's most comprehensive HR industry study, the discussion will offer a closer look at the insights and solutions that prepare HR leaders for a successful 2025. And for this, we have two eminent industry experts joining us today. These are, and I would love to welcome Monica Watt, founder and HR strategist at Incredible Buzz.
Hey, Chester, thank you very much for the invitation. Great to be here again.
Hi, Monica. Very warm welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. A little bit about Monica here. Enriched by her 3 decades of HR and business leadership excellence, Monica is highly respected coaching consultant when it comes to developing strategy and executing it successfully in the Pacific. Our second speaker is an industry expert, Elise Diner, Head of HR, ANZ and SEA at UKG.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome.
Hello, Elise. A very warm welcome to you as well. A little bit about Elise here. Elise is a seasoned HR professional with a diverse background spanning corporate HR, journalism, and media. Born and raised in Sydney's southern suburbs, where Elise now lives with her husband and 2 young boys. Currently, as I mentioned, head of HR, ANZ, and Southeast Asia at UKG, she focuses on aligning the HR strategy with org effectiveness and local talent initiatives, and she's dedicated to fostering environments where the teams thrive and succeed. A very warm welcome again to both of you, and I'm excited to delve deeper into the important discussion with the both of you.
Great to be here. It's going to be a good conversation, I have no doubt.
Perfect. Sounds good. And for our audience, I would love to remind you that please be prepared with your questions. We have industry experts here. We're going to talk about some interesting topics, areas spanning different dimensions of the state of the HR industry currently and what it's going to be in the next 12 to 18 months. So we're going to take your questions in the middle of it, towards the end of the conversation. Feel free to type in, and we'll try to address as many as possible. Lovely. So without further ado, let's start with our first question that I have for both of you. The SHRPA research finds that 64% of companies are set to miss out on HR transformation success if it is not centered on people and enabled, catalyzed, accelerated by technologies. So, what would you say are the key strategies to ensuring HR transformation that leverages the potential of newer technologies in Australia and New Zealand? Would love to start with you, Monica.
Really good question. And I'd probably like to start with challenging of making HR transformation both people-centric and tech-enabled, which is something the SHRPA research shows. For me, this means letting technology amplify the human connection, not replace it. You know, for instance, I've worked with a tech company that implemented an AI-powered feedback system. And what that was doing is designed for real-time sentiment analysis instead of waiting for those annual engagement surveys. And through that, you know, HR can gauge morale monthly, acting really fast. And what I'm seeing with that shift and leveraging both the people-centric and tech, you know, so getting that even balance, we've seen significant shifts, you know, so increasing engagement, people feeling heard and valued. And for me, the key takeaway is that tech should be a bridge to connecting with people, not just another tool. And some questions, I think, you know, you wonderful people that are out there watching this is, are we truly listening to our people through these tools? And are we using those feedback loops to adapt to their needs continuously? Elise, I'd probably love to hear your perspective on this, especially given the trends that UKG is seeing around that people-centric tech.
Yeah, absolutely, Monica. And I think you know, it's nice to hear that we're aligned there. I think to build upon your fantastic points there, I think much of the value HR brings, much of the value that HR can add as a function, it stems from our ability to know our business, know our client groups, know their needs. So I think bringing that people-centric aspect into our strategies and our technology, prioritizing, understanding how will employees interact with a new technology, how can we make sure it's user-friendly, it'll meet their needs to ensure that outcome at the end of the day. And further to that, considering consulting our employee base as early in the selection and implementation process of technology as early as feasible will help ensure that technology aligns to their workflows, their experiences. And I think that's something that as a profession, we can do more of in terms of consulting our employee base early on. I think another kind of key element is streamlining those HR processes through technology, leveraging data and analytics, making sure we implement those people-centric metrics and analytics that a lot of our technology partners can provide us. And the key here is scalability to enable management and our employees through technology, particularly in such a high cost labour market like ANZ. As HR, we need our employees and our managers tools to handle those ongoing repetitive tasks so they can really focus on value adding for the organisation.
Really good point. Elise, you've got some research that I know that you've alluded to in some of our conversation previous. With what UKG is finding, you know, how are, you know, you might be able to have this, or how are companies kind of making sure they're not losing that human element in the tech-driven transformation? You talked about consultation, but there's an overlay, and you and I talked about this before coming on together, the amount of technology as we bring companies together and layer things on. How are we making sure that we're not losing that human element in that tech-driven transformation?
Yeah, absolutely, Monica. And I think not to oversimplify things, but I think from from a holistic perspective, it comes back to really understanding the client needs and then thinking about how can you create a streamlined platform? How can you make sure that's integrated technology? So when you're going from recruitment to onboarding to performance management to engagement to what have you, life cycle of the employee, the technology is also integrated so that it's not kind of stacking and potentially getting in each other's way. So I think that's really important, and focusing on that end user, being people centric. I think if we focus on the outcomes of why we have the technology, what it's there to drive, it'll really help alleviate some of those potential outcomes that you talked about.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with both of you here. What you mentioned, how to make your transformation efforts completely people centric. You need to listen to your employees. You need to understand the challenges. I think what we also uncovered in our research, some of the findings, is that most of the HR leaders and organizations, what was happening was they were centering their digital business transformation efforts around the technology rather than the people. So, considering technology as an enabler, not the solution itself, and considering people at the center of your people's problems at the center of your solution strategy is very, very critical. So that's where I think, Elise, you also mentioned, just employees listening, being, keeping it at the center of it, and also considering the scalability aspect, which is very, very important in building the user centricity, is extremely crucial to have your transformation efforts tech enabled and also executed effectively.
Absolutely.
With that, I think yes, Monica, sorry, you were saying something.
No, leaning into that, it's a really good point. And we've been talking about this since, 2020 and a little bit before, is having technology for technology's sakes. Technology is there to serve us and to bolster us, to empower us to be and do more with and for each other. And so I think it's very important when we're looking at leaders. I'd encourage HR teams to start asking themselves, are we using tech to truly listen to our people, or are we just adding that other tool? And how might we then really peel back some of the technology? Because there is just so much out there, so many point solutions, multi-tenanted solutions, turning over so quickly. Sometimes it's you can turn technology on and off all the time, and don't be afraid to turn tech off, but don't be afraid to turn something back on as well.
Absolutely. Monica, it's interesting. I had a conversation earlier today on a different topic, and it came up in passing, the phrase, well, we know HR leaders are not typically technology driven. And I think that's a perception for one, but I think it's a stereotype we have to shatter as an industry, because the way in which we're resourced as a team, the way in which we will be resourced in regions like ANZ, we're a high labour cost environment, and we know that. We need to look at technology as an extension of our team. It's part of the HR resources, it's part of the HR team, and we need to become stewards of that technology and really lean into it as much as we can as a profession for the future, because it's not going anywhere, and we know that.
Yeah, I think you've brought a great point here, and that was again another of our findings, that HR leaders do need to build functional expertise and technology skills along with a digital mindset for themselves. HR needs to become HR, for themselves. So looking at the coming year, Elise and Monica, what capabilities do you see becoming critical for HR teams across the Pacific to ensure it accelerates the transformation efforts aligned with business and employee expectations here?
Monica, do you want to
Elise, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Absolutely. I think when it comes to that, I'll go back to my previous point, becoming the stewards and technology leaders, thinking about the cost associated with scaling our HR team, and really thinking that technology is an extension of our team. I think another strategy that we should be focused on in the coming year, and it's become, we talk about data and analytics and interpretation of it constantly. But I think really doubling down and getting a deeper level of understanding into our data, thinking about investing in technology that's built upon, usable data that can inform decision makings around things like workforce dynamics, workforce planning, some of those future proofing initiatives that we know we need to do. I think HR can be more vigilant or needs to lean in more into the cybersecurity awareness element as well, not just in our data that we're using for our employees, but how we're encouraging our teams to use customer data as well. And again, selecting technology partners that can help with that. I think employee experience is more important than ever, and taking that with a technology lens, how can we create personalized and meaningful interactions through our feedback tool, our recognition tools, and all those different tools that, as you mentioned, Monica, there's so many different technology elements we can use as a HR function. So how do we make that personalized and meaningful for our employees? And I think leaning into, finally, AI and machine learning. We have some incredible examples of where our clients are using machine learning capabilities to do things like fatigue management in rostering in mining sectors, or looking at skills recency in how casino workers, for example, are shifted based on the skills that they have recently been developing. So there's a lot of clever things that technology can enable us to do. So I think we need to start leaning into that more and really become that true steward of HR tech for our businesses.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I could do a little bit of a tap dance as you're talking about, because that's a significant soapbox. When you think about technology, whether it's AI, analytics, everything that you've kind of encompassed about what HR, and it's all business leaders. I mean, you and I, Elise, have talked about this. HR is the only division, the only team that has every touch point across every team. And, and there's no level between those. And so it's looking at how are we engaging with that, because technology, AI, analytics, our data is only as good as the intent behind it. And for us as HR leaders, it's about using these tools to support our people's growth and productivity in a meaningful way. And you mentioned some of your clients. One of my clients, a financial services a firm that I've worked with and still working with, they introduced some analytics to likewise to predict when employees were most at risk of burnout based on their work patterns, right? And so what the data then did, it allowed managers to step in early and offer support, resulting in reduced presenteeism, decrease turnover, but it also enabled us to see where leaders needed to be developed. And so in this instance, it's crucial that leaders be asking themselves, are we using technology? Are we using AI? Are we using data to simply track metrics? Or are we using it to genuinely enhance the employee experience, which is what you're leading into? Because the employee experience is the queen and king of business at the moment. The shifting dynamic, we still are in an employee's world. And what checks do we have in place to ensure that it's being used responsibly, that it's being used ethically? Leaning into your point about cyber, my most recent role has been as the executive support for ISO 27001 and all of the privacy data information that's held for our employees and customers. So there's such a big volume of responsibility that we've got. And when I think about it, if you're using a HRIS or project management tool, whether it's one of them, right? And you're gathering data on employee workload, task completion, overtime hours, aggregate this data weekly or monthly and get a clear view of your high stress periods, right? I think if there are some things that those watching this want to know what to do, start there. If burnout risk is flagged, your system or who's in the system should trigger an alert to HR and the manager. And this could be a prompt for a recommendation for additional support, flexible scheduling, workload adjustment. So many things we've got, and we're looking at technology, but we also need to be looking at manager training for what you've just talked about. You know, shift work fatigue, burnout, overwork, so many things. We have an obligation there as well to equip our managers to identify early signs of all of these and teach them how to have proactive conversations. That is more than technology. Technology enables to say, Houston, I have a problem. This person is doing too much, being too much, errors too much, whatever it is that's occurring. It's really essential to humanize the data to prevent any of the issues before they escalate. There's just my soapbox.
No, I completely agree there. I think that the management and manager enablement could be the missing link. Without it being there, the technology is only so good. The HR processes are only so good. It's really the linchpin, that management enablement. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah,
and I know we've got another Chester. I know we've got another question that's coming up, but I'm just going to lean into which is, I can't remember the question itself, Chester, but I remember the gist of it because we were talking about data privacy. And this is something that I presented before about. And you alluded to that with, you know, to do with cyber and privacy and globalization, you know, PCI, GDPR, there is so much involved. Privacy is a critical factor as we use technology more and more, right? Because we've seen this, it's actually been in the paper in the last couple of weeks. There's been you know, plenty of things about surveillances. Trust in organizations are eroding very quickly when employees feel like their privacy at risk. I'm aware, you know, of in one organization that I work, we set up an AI and privacy charter, which is so important, where we actually, and you would do this, Elise, where you're actually inviting employees to contribute. And what this did, this document outlined what data would be collected, how it would be used, the employees' rights around it. So important, holding workshops, employees were able to voice their concerns, because not everybody loves technology, even if you work in a tech company. It's really quite interesting. Don't assume because you're working in a tech company or they're using tech that they actually get it and want anything about that. So I think that's something that we need to focus on and be saying, how are we communicating our data usage policies? Are we really offering an opt-in, a real opt-in kind of option for sensitive data? But Elise, I'd love to hear what you're seeing organisation, you know, manage this balance between innovation and privacy with your research that you've got going on.
I think Elise and Monica, you've actually touched all the right notes here. And Elise, I'm gonna stop you here. I'm so sorry about it, because I want to delve deeper into both of these topics that Monica has just mentioned. Interestingly, our report also covered both of these. One is improving productivity by leveraging AI and advanced analytics in HR workflows that you rightly mentioned in the beginning, Monica and Elise, and also a very, very critical and rising issue of data privacy and security. So let's touch upon it, one by one, and would love to hear more from you, Elise, on specifically AI and advanced analytics here as well. So the report, as you see, notes 50% of HR leaders say that they are dissatisfied with the current state in ANC markets, and there's still so we see there's still a lot of area of improvement here. What should HR leaders be doing better to improve their AI and advanced analytics journey, the start to end journey, to further employ productivity and experience both? And I think you're in a really good spot to answer this question as well, because you are the HR for an HR technology organization. So would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I am very fortunate in that, everyone in my business knows what I do and have a really healthy respect for the HR function, but it also means I get really amazing insights into kind of technology and the cutting edge and what we're doing, what we're doing right. So I think advancements specifically in AI are really set to dramatically reshape our workplace, and HR as a function, again, needs to start owning where it touches the employee life cycle. And we know that globally, organizations using AI, estimate that's going to climb significantly in the next 4 to 5 years. And even those companies that are not using AI expect it to still grow. Again, I'm very fortunate, and our former CPO actually spoke with People Matters about some research that UKG did on understanding the perception of using AI at work. And while there is an ongoing stereotype that AI, will overtake human roles, our research actually found that trust in generative AI tools is very high, with over a quarter of people completely trusting them and over half somewhat trusting those tools. I think the role of HR is an interesting one in that we can shape the narrative around AI in the workplace. Currently, that narrative is around productivity and efficiency gains, which is a really big driver of why businesses and employees are using these tools. In our research, we found something really interesting that ANZ workers in particular, we over, I think it was something like 82% perhaps, wanted to understand the role that AI would have in helping eliminate favoritism and bias. So I found that fascinating when I read the research. I think of AI and I use AI for a productivity gain. But if you think about it, the day-to-day decisions that in the workplace that can be subject to even unconscious bias, these tools have that, if they're built correctly, if they've got that in the model, that ability to take a step further, analyze trends, look at highlight key insights, give those to managers to help avoid biases in the future. And that is in addition to that kind of productive work that the system can do. So I think as a HR function, we can really think about how we embed AI in particular and use it to further our people goals and our social impact goals and all those different areas where it can touch. With that, and Cheshire, I don't want to jump into the next topic, but with that comes a responsibility, a need for transparency, and a lot of things that I could definitely talk about in future.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I think Monica.
Sorry, go. I want to lean into something that that's around this topic and AI. Again, tech being HR being custodians and across technology. When we think about how we can use AI, and we are using it to streamline processes, right? And I'm glad you mentioned about people feeling that it's going to take their jobs away. There's so many ways in which jobs get changed over the years. But when I look at how I'm working with some of my clients in practicing, remember, there's nothing concrete about AI yet. There's a lot of practice. So we're using some for strategic workforce planning and skills forecasting, right? We're using it to predict future skills gap and workforce needs based on market trends, emerging technologies, internal data, right? What we're then using that for is to proactively upskill and reskill our people, and that then comes back to ensuring that we remain agile and competitive, right? When you're thinking about that employee experience that you mentioned beforehand, Elise, when you're thinking about that hyper-personalized employee experience, moving beyond the general benefits and career paths, it has the ability to create uniquely personalized experience for everyone, adapting to their needs, their aspirations, their behaviors, and it goes so far beyond personalized learning paths, which I have been super duper passionate about for all these years. To see that go even beyond what my brain's capacity has, and the potential for someone, is phenomenal. A couple of other places that we've been dabbling with it is looking at predictive wellbeing and mental health support. Wow. And that, similar to the other point that we're working at, work patterns, engagement survey data, even some passive wearable tech, so we've got the Aura Ring. There's a few that are just experimenting with a few of those things. AI has the ability to help HR leaders identify those early signs of remembering of burnout. So burnout, remember folks, burnout is clinical. It means you've gone beyond, fatigue. It means you're actually now clinically diagnosed with burnout, as well as mental health. And so rather than waiting for issues to escalate, AI can actually trigger interventions, so there's so much practice and play that I've been working with AI about talent intelligence and external talent mapping, team composition, project staffing. There's so much that I think that we have that we're just scratching the surface on AI in that space right now. So yeah, I'm super excited, super cautious, but very open to having some practice. It'd be awesome, to see what UKG does, with your group of companies and how this all comes to life.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting stuff.
Yeah,
That's true. I think, Monica, some of the examples that you've shared are so incredible, and they also actually respond to one of our audience's question on how AI can really help leaders personalize the employee's overall experience in their well-being, in their engagement, overall experience, career progression, etc. So some such amazing examples for our audience to also take away as well. Thank you so much. I want to now zoom out a little bit and lean into the question around and the rising concern around data security, privacy, and the responsible utilization of technology. So one of the findings that we had in our research is, in order to have a sustainable technology infrastructure, the two non-negotiable that HR leaders should look upon in terms when they are evaluating the technology is that it should be responsible, the utilization of advanced technology, and then it should be scalable as well. We talk a little bit about scalability, Elise, previously, and would love to touch upon the privacy concerns and data security concerns here that are growing with the use of Gen AI and advanced analytics. So how should really HR balance the use of these technologies with the rising concern of employee privacy here? And what are some of the strategies that you can offer leaders to, successfully build their tech infrastructure for 2025 while, meeting these concerns or addressing these concerns rather?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we have time, I have one more example about how AI can customize the employee experience that I'm really excited to share. So I'm going to dive into that, and then I'm going to jump into privacy. This is actually, and think of me, we're in the middle of our performance review cycle internally here at UKG, but we're really excitingly for the first time using our AI tool to further employee reviews and manager reviews through that performance review cycle. So seeing it come to life internally, and it's something that, obviously we'll be hoping to bring to our product suite in the future, has had exceptional feedback from the employee base. I know the question was around personalizing their experience when it comes to things like career progression. That has been one that I was initially a little bit like, oh, do I write my review? Do I review others with AI? But it was a fantastic way to augment and improve what employees and managers were already doing naturally. So there's a lot of places, whoever had that question, where personalization, once we lean in, will start to be really, really easy to deliver. So back to privacy. So in order to do all those fun, exciting things, we need to do that element of digital enablement. And that will be key to the transformation, particularly when we look at AI and new technologies. That transformation needs to come with strong governance and transparency about how AI will integrate into existing workflows. I think we as a profession in human resources are positioned really well to be that thoughtful thought leader in advising how we use and deploy AI within our own companies. Considering privacy, security, ethical use of these tools, all these things, Monica and Chester, that we have talked about. What we will say when implementing new technology around privacy and security, there are three major considerations that I would urge the the HR professionals in the room to consider. Firstly, being open and transparent. Ensuring employees understand the benefits and the limitations of the technology, which will definitely increase adoption, but also prevent unnecessary frustration and unnecessary risk. Secondly, putting safeguards in place and putting robust parameters around the use of new technologies, around the use of AI. In that study I mentioned earlier that UKG conducted, we found that 1 in 4 Australians are entering sensitive company information into chatbots. And initially, that's very surprising. It's less surprising when you consider another finding that came out of that work was that almost half of companies have not yet offered guidance on how employees should interact with AI in their work. So we've got this exciting technology, we've got this really capable technology. In this case, we have a lot of people that are eager to use the technology. We need to build the robust rigor, the framework, the policies around guidance on how to use AI. So that's, for example, we have policies in place around AI and the work and sensitive work and the work that we do internally at UKG, and that's been really beneficial. To do that, you need to conduct the training. So that will be the third kind of pillar here. Yeah. When you're going through a big transformation project, we often see a lack of investment in change management and training because there isn't a need to get to the end goal. To fully leverage these tools and mitigate the risks that can come with any new technology, you need to go through the skills enhancement, the digital enablement, and have that governance system in place. We can get the best technology and best systems available. If your staff don't know how to use them effectively and in the best interests of your company and your clients, it will be a waste. So we need to have this robustness and built around the exciting technology that we all want to use to do that effectively, I think.
Yeah, I love the 3 considerations that you mentioned around creating the right governance mechanism to utilize the technology responsibly. Monica, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it leads to the first part that we talked about, creating those charters, right? So what is your AI and data privacy handbook, right? And that details from how AI analyzes work patterns to how employee data is stored. There's so much that you can be involved in. This is where that co-creation part, you can go in with a framework, but it's understanding from their smart devices, when they're talking to Alexa, Google, Siri, ChatGPT, Watson, all of those different bots that are out there, even a bot that's on your finance, when you're banking, it's everywhere. Realizing how they think it's benign. I'm just adding some of those, so training, as you've highlighted, Elise, is critical because it's very interesting how many companies inadvertently, by people sharing data, PCI, breaching GDPR, breaching ISO 9001, 27001. There are various points there. And if you're using AI monitoring, how they're doing it, it can flag when something's happening. So education is going to be key here, because if you think your people aren't practicing with AI, so create safe ecosystems of what can be used, how it can be used, why we use it. And then what we take that is we then authenticate that as the human element. And that's the critical part here. How do we engage? When do we engage? Why do we engage? What do we do with it? And then how do we analyze what we've done with it? Right? And it's a whole cycle, and complete cycle, almost like the ADDIE cycle for project and instructional design. But it's going through the most critical thing. I invite anybody on this journey. Conduct regular audits and review all your AI systems for anything that's going in that shouldn't be in there. So potential biases, inaccuracies, data misuse. Include an accountability team that oversees the data usage, and address any emerging ethical concerns, because people don't wake up in the morning to think, what system can I break and who can I piss off today? Human error is huge. It really, really is huge. And so what we want to do is acknowledge where humans interact with technology and put in some processes for that. And the other most important, controls. Yeah. Who has access and what level of access do they have? It's no different. AI is no different than your HRIS, your payroll system, your CRM. You have authority levels. They need to be checked all the time. They really do. Don't just think, humans are humans. If they can access something, they'll have a sticky beak, whether they're supposed to see it or not, but they'll go on, they're curious. So prepare for that curiosity.
So true. Yes. And we do have an audience question here, Monica and Elise, with anyone of you can answer. So we've talked about responsible utilization of technology. We've talked about people centricity, while investing in a technology and then obviously employee adoption of the technology as well. Now, what should leaders be doing more apart from these to ensure the people initiatives and the use of newer technologies are successful? If there's anything else that you want to talk about.
I'm happy to jump in on this one, but at least I'm pretty sure you'll concur. Leaders need to champion a people-first mindset. When leaders emphasize that people come before technology, it sets the tone that human centricity is a priority. And employees then feel more likely to engage with those initiatives and the tech tools if they feel that their well-being and their growth is at the core of those goals. Now, leaders can role model this, right? Show genuine interest, in feedback, understanding their concerns about new tools, being transparent about how these tools aim to support, not replace their roles. So key drivers, regular town halls, open door policies, visible support. Elise has already mentioned this. Invest in education and change management. We are brilliant at coming up with all these ideas, but execution is not our strength. It needs to become stronger. It needs to become stronger in saying, we've just got this tool. Provide comprehensive training for any new tech course, right? Focus on the technical skills and the practical applications. And then accompany this with a structured change management plan that includes updates, support resources, Q&A sessions, your champions of change who can guide their peers through the process. And I think lastly that I would say is why. Focus on the why behind each initiative. Why it matters. Connect everything that you're doing, everything that you're being to the bigger picture, like improving employee well-being, enhancing career developments, creating more efficiency and collaborative workplaces. So for instance, if you're introducing an AI-based learning platform, communicate how it will personalize their growth paths and help them reach their career goals faster. Anyhow, Elise, your thoughts on this question? Really good question, by the way.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's one that I agree with everything there, Monica. I think it's something that we as a function of HR kind of need to be thinking about cyclically and almost constantly. With any change management that we go through, there are key things that we need to do. We need to get executive buy-in. We need the management team on board. I think so much of the success of what we roll out as a human resource function, as an organization, hinges on our management's ability to understand it and kind of embed it within our teams on the front line. I think with AI particularly, our research really shows that transparency that you mentioned, Monica, is absolutely critical. We have, and you talked about people being curious. We want to harness that curiosity in the right direction. If people want to use AI to make their role in your company more successful, go for it. Here's how you do it properly. Here's how you do it safely. Here's how you do it within our framework that we discussed. So I think it is really important to keep that change management loop kind of constantly rolling when it comes to things like AI, because generative AI will soon be replaced by the next generation of AI and the next one. This will not stop, and it's exciting. It's a little bit overwhelming at times as to how much technology there is at our fingertips, but I think our leaders in particular can get on board, be transparent, and keep those frameworks front of mind while harnessing that curiosity for that business aim that we all want to get to.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Really well, really well said, Elise.
Thank you.
Really well said. I agree. And I love that point about being transparent, Elise, that you mentioned. And Monica, love that point when you said execution is not our strength. We see leaders being change ready and, having the change mindset and have the intent of it and building that in the organizations, really, building change ready organizations. But when it comes to change execution, that is where we are missing out. In fact, our research said 77% of organizations are change ready, and we analyze them based on various factors, while 64% are still not, because they are missing out on their execution targets, implementation activities. So that's where really leaders need to work more on to ensure the initiatives and the technology implementation is in fact successful. And my next question to both of you is, I completely aligned with our discussion here. So building a great segue for us here. We've also seen the top two challenges, talent challenges for ANZ remain the ability to hire qualified people and also develop the right leaders. And Monica, this would interest you a lot as well,
Yeah.
and would love to hear more from you. So how do these challenges really reflect in your work and your peers and with your clients? How can talent attraction and leadership development be made more impactful in 2025?
Yeah. I think there are two big challenges of talent attraction and leadership. And developing leaders isn't always about moving people up the ladder, right? In some instances, about recognizing when someone has reached their ceiling or they're uniquely holding a seat. These are some of the challenges that we do face. And I say this with the deepest respect, having been there myself. And, it's understanding what some of the leadership reset that we have. Offering managers a safe space to grow, to discover what their new challenges are. I see a question that's come in which was about generational from generational workforce. It's understanding and playing to the strengths of where are vertical movements and lateral movements, elements that are around those reflective practices, whether it's coaching, feedback, regular assessments, to actually help leaders. What we want them to do is park their egos at the door and say, this is what I know, this is what I can build upon, this is what I don't know at all. And our job, no different than anywhere else, is actually to create a safe, psychologically safe approach in particular for our leaders. When we're thinking about actual development, one approach that works really well, and I've used this in many companies, is that cross-functional stretch assignment, and that's a way to develop future leaders. And what that's also doing is actually it's strengthening your talent pool, your internal talent pool. And so when you're thinking about where to next, who I've got, start identifying your high potential employees from different departments or divisions, then assign them to lead projects, especially if you're agile. If you're iterating, awesome. But if you've got project teams, how can they lead, projects outside of their usual scope? How can we mentor them, pair them with a mentor who guide them through their learning process. Again, what we want to do is step them outside of their comfort zone and give them hands-on leadership experience. And in my experience, this approach has commonly led to about 50% reduction in time to fill for senior roles, because we're able to promote from within, saving both time and both recruitment costs. And for anybody, trying to implement something similar, I'd recommend starting with small projects to build confidence. And a key question I'd be asking when it comes to leadership and leadership development, are we challenging our high potentials in a way that grow their skills? And do we then have the systems for identifying emerging leaders early? Because what that's doing, I have a Defence Force background in that space, and we have 1 up, 2 down, and which means you should know the capability to step into a role above you, and the 2 down below you should know how to step up into your position should something hit the fan. And you've all heard about VUCA, and you all heard about things like that. It is tapping into that of saying, we don't have shiny bums. This isn't about you feather nesting your role. This is about how are we going to keep scaling and protecting this business, using your word, so protect, so future-proof your business. How are we going to do that? That needs to be the lead into any question. No personality involved, no longevity involved, no favoritism involved. It's saying, what do we need? Why do we need it? And then look at all the people that you've got on board. Elise, what's yours, in your research?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see from the question, that multi-generational workforce and keeping them engaged is an important one for the audience. Again, I'm really lucky to be HR at a HR tech business because I get access to a lot of this data and information. So we actually look at upcoming trends as well. And very similar to the State of HR report, the top 2 trends are the talent deficit that is happening globally, that is unfortunately predicted to get worse before it gets better, and that kind of retention imperative. I think we know that our leaders, our C-suite, are thinking about retention constantly. So I think it's really important to, and it's something that we as a HR function have never stopped thinking about, but iterating, to your point, Monica, on how we think about retention. One really interesting piece of work that the team here did was look at multi-generational and particular Gen Z in the workplace, specifically here in Australia and in New Zealand. And we found some really interesting research that came out about the ways of working of Gen Z. And I think key to kind of retention and talent attraction is we need to really start investing in this generation. They are coming up in their careers. They are going to be what we tap into in our future leaders, our future everything. So what was really interesting in the report is that we found that the actual preferred communication style for Gen Z is face-to-face, which I was staggered when I read. Truly, I really wouldn't have expected that based on kind of what I think our perception of Gen Z is. And about over half of those surveyed had a miscommunication on digital communication channels. And when we started to unpack why this generation might be craving that face-to-face so much more, it's likely due to the fact that they began their careers or came up in their careers during the middle of a pandemic and missed those critical years of networking development. So I think that we as a function of HR can look at crafting and enhancing the employee experience around what are the needs of Gen Z, what are the ways of working of Gen Z, to look at retaining that generation in addition to those that are more ingrained in our workforce and have been here for longer. Another really interesting and probably less surprising for me personally part of the research was that our younger generations are by far the most likely to engage in training resources. So it was something like 70% of Gen Z workforce would engage with a training course, and then when you looked at your baby boomer generation, it was under 40%. So lean into that curiosity, provide that. And I love that phrase, lateral development, Monica, that you used. So often we look at development like this, but sometimes you need to sit in your position and develop laterally to be ready for that next opportunity. So I think while we have a generation coming into the workforce that's hungry for training, they're hungry for skills development, let's give it to them, and let's start that retention and that career development early on in these individuals' careers.
I want to tap into that, and then purely because, as you know, we've got 5 generations in the workforce, and really awesome. And I would be surprised with some of that data, when I first read it as well. And it's looking at, and this does dovetail into the question that we have. is when you think about millennials and Gen Zs and the likes, seeking a fast-paced growth and skills acquisition, whilst a Gen X, myself, and a boomer might prioritize stability, mastery, mentorship opportunities. And it's actually looking at flexible career paths, looking at those different ways of working, design policies that allow different parameters, flexibility, hybrid work schedules, or things that kind of help both, all different generations that we've got. And I guess, obviously, the thing that taps into every individual is, and you said this at the very, very start, which was, the purpose and social responsibility. What's our mission? What's our community initiatives? What's our values? What's our CSR? Tap into those and really look at the skills development we've got, the passion points, the cross, generational collaborations, knowledge sharing. There are so many things that I think that I believe and I know that we have a lot of work to do when you consider how many generations are in the workforce. Absolutely. And coming back to that original question that you asked, Jethra, is we need to kind of have a little bit of a crystal ball and talk to everybody and say, we will do our best to be who we can be for everyone in the best possible way that we can, because we cannot be everything to everyone at every point in time. It's just almost fundamentally not possible. But leaders have to realize that leaders are in a leadership role for the business and people to succeed. It's not for them to succeed. They'll succeed if their team is succeeding. Simple.
Yeah. So well said.
Think, building upon that, Monica, again, I'm in a fortunate, unique position that UKG, who, for those of you who don't know, was formerly Kronos, spans all those generations, and we've been around for decades. So you can see the different generations and how they interact with kind of policy development and benefits and all these different elements of the employee life cycle. It's fascinating, and you're right in that it's a varied spectrum of what's important to who at what point in their careers and their lives. I will say, not to simplify it, but I'd say if we can go back to what we've talked about a couple of times, of that people centricity and that genuine putting people at the center of what we do as businesses, that will ultimately benefit every generation. But it is really going to be so interesting to unpack it as over the next 18 to 24 months, as what that means as a HR profession.
Oh yeah,
so true. And I think with managing the multi-generational workforce, the personalization of technology implementation and adoption becomes all the more important. So, our conversation comes to a full circle here. And if I were to really, summarize the beautiful examples that you've given from your own organization and the industry, I think the fundamental pillars of HR here, attracting the right talent and developing right leaders, which remain, the challenges here in ANZ. So with the changing business and HR landscape, as I heard from you, attracting the Gen Z talent, retaining top talent, developing leaders laterally, and cross-generational collaboration will be the areas of focus that will have the greatest impact on, business growth here. Is something that I am definitely going to take away. And as we conclude the conversation, I do want to bring out 3 other key takeaways for our listeners here apart from this. So the second one is improving end-to-end AI and analytics journey implementation centered around employee challenges to enhance employee productivity and overall experience. The third is tackling HR's functional effectiveness and looking at the skills and mindset shifts really necessary to create better value for employees and business alike. And the last one is building a sustainable technology infrastructure, with the non-negotiable being responsible and scalable technology to ensure necessary components of data privacy, cybersecurity, employee centricity, and while ensuring transparency and execution efforts remain key priorities in leveraging new technology effectively. You will also see all these 4 key takeaways from the discussion in our comments shortly as well. But firstly, I would love to thank Monica and Elise here for the brilliant conversation that we've had here and some of the great insights that you've brought from, the ANZ region here from, peer practitioners, your peer insights and your organizational insights, which made this conversation super, super enriching. Thank you so much again for your time, Monica and Elise, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much. It's been great being here, and continue the conversation. It's so important to continue this conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you. And with that, you will also see the link to People Matters Sherpa research in the comments. To all our audience, I would encourage you to download the detailed global report here, which has some great insights, which we discussed today, and a lot more. And feel free to share your feedback, thoughts, for us to, take this further, take this research further, as it's the annual People Matters effort to conduct this research. So we are definitely going to take your feedback in the loop here. Thank you so much again for the conversation, and have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye.
Same to you.